Okay, so today we're going to talk about dividing decimals by 10, 100, and 1,000. And if you remember yesterday we talked about, not yesterday, just kidding. Remember a few days ago that we talked about when we multiply or we divide, it's just a matter of moving the decimal. So I'm going to use these awesome snacks that I bought for the store to show an example. So we're going to say that we had these cost $6.58. But in the bag, there's a total of 10 bags of chips. So it's a big bag and there's 10 bags of chips. So I want to know how much each individual bag costs. I'm taking the big amount of $6.58 and I'm dividing it by 10 because I want to know how much each one of those costs. I'm taking the big number and I'm putting it into smaller groups. Well, when we talked about this with multiplying, so if I had 6.5 and I multiplied it by 10, I would count my number of zeros and I would move my decimal to make it bigger. So this would move one time to make 65. Well, the same is true when we divide, except we're not getting bigger anymore. This time we're getting smaller. If I was multiplying, I would make this number bigger, so no longer would it be $6.58. Now I'm going to make it smaller. I'm putting it into groups. I'm making it smaller. So my decimal will move one time to make this 0.658. Well, when we're talking about dollar amounts, of course, we only go 2 decimal places. So this 8 is going to make that 5 round to 6. So each bag of chips is 66 cents. All right, so in your notebook, we're going to go ahead and do the title. Today's title is Dividing by 10, 100, and 1,000. I want you to come up with your own I can statement. I bet you can think of it. What are we going to be working on today? And then I want you to list at least 3 ways in your notebook. I want you to write these down. 3 ways that we use dividing of decimals. Hint, hint, I just gave you one way in the intro. Yes, you may use that one. We did a lot of examples when we were talking about multiplication, making things bigger, but this time we're dividing it. We're putting it into groups. Go ahead and write that in your notebook. So, you see this sticker sheet? Yeah, there's some smiley faces missing. But I could use multiplication and dividing on this both ways. So, for instance, if I wanted to say that each one of these smiley faces you only got if you put in 0.2% of work, then you would say, okay, well, I put in 0.2% or 2% of work times 100 because there's 100 on the sheet. Then I would go ahead and count 1, 2, make my number bigger, 1, 2, and I would come up with 20. When I move my decimal and I have to add a 0 like that, that's called annexing a 0 or annex one number. Annex means that I have to put it in there. I'm not taking away, I have to put it in there because my number started with 0.2 and now I have to put in that 0 right there. That's called annexing. This is important. Okay, so let's use it to divide. We're going to say that this whole sheet of stickers cost $2.23. And I want to find out how much each sticker costs. Well, there's 100 stickers on there. So in this case, remember the numbers. I'm still going to have 2, 2, and 3. These numbers will never change. I'll still have a 2, bam, a 2, bam, and a 3. The thing that changes when I'm multiplying or dividing by tens, hundreds, or 1,000 is where this decimal point is going to be. So I count my zeros, 1, 2. I'm dividing, which means I'm making it smaller. If I go this way with my decimal, that makes it bigger because it goes from 2 as my whole number to 223. We know that 223 is bigger. We want to get smaller. I'm putting into smaller groups. So if my decimal starts here and I have to move it twice, 1, 2, and I'm going to have to do some annexing of a 0. 1, 2, and I need to add a 0 in there. So when I divide it, I come up with each sticker costs about 2 cents. I divided it into groups. Okay, in your notebook, you're going to write these problems down. The first problem you're going to write down, oh, I'm not going to use yellow. Let me get rid of that. The first problem you're going to write down is 16.4 divided by 10. Then you're going to write down 36.92 divided by 100. And the last one that you're going to write down is 0.33 divided by 1,000. Ooh, that one looks like it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to do that. Alright, so right now I want you to pause the video and I want you to attempt moving this decimal. Yes, I really want you to pause the video. Why are you still listening to me? You should have paused it. Okay, hopefully you're back, you've unpaused it, and you have answers for all of these problems. But the first thing I want you to check is your answer have the same number as what's over here. Yes? Good. Alright, then we have to check how many zeros or how many spots are we moving the decimal. 0, we have 1 0 here. That means this decimal is going to move 1 time. But we have to make sure that we're making it smaller because we're dividing. So if it started here and I need to move it once to get smaller, I moved it to the left. And I should have a decimal right here. Check your answer. Now this one, we have 2 decimals. So 2 zeros. So our decimal should move 2 times, but we want to make sure that we're getting smaller because we're dividing. 1, 2. Hopefully your decimal is right there. And last but not least, I feel like we're going to need to annex on this one. So we have 1, 2, 3 zeros, which means my decimal will move, 3 times, and we're dividing, which means this 0.33, which is already small, it's part of a whole. It's going to get even smaller because we have to move that decimal 3 times. I'm going to go ahead and draw the path that this decimal is taking. It's going 1, 2, 3. And in those holes, I got to put something. So I need to annex 1, 2, 3 zeros in there to make it work. All right, head on over to your class Kick. Your next letter is E.